The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a stale, electric hum that was the only sound left in the deserted office. Mark rubbed his eyes, the numbers on his spreadsheet beginning to blur. Another late night. Another project deadline that felt like a life sentence. He was the last one there, as usual, the king of an empty, cubicle-filled kingdom. He stretched and decided a coffee was the only thing that would save him. As he walked toward the break room, a faint sound made him pause. It was music. Distant, tinny, like an old radio struggling to find a signal. It was a slow, melancholic waltz. Weird, he thought. The cleaners aren't due for hours. Hello, he called out, his voice swallowed by the vast, open-plan space. Is someone there? There was no answer, but the music seemed to grow slightly louder, pulling him toward the older and used wing of the office, the place where outdated filing cabinets went to die. He followed the sound, his dress shoes silent on the carpet tiles. The music was definitely coming from behind a door marked Archives. The handle was cold under his touch. He pushed the door open. The room was dark, lit only by the emergency exit sign and the faint glow of the city through a grimy window. And in the center of the room, bathed in that eerie red light, a woman was dancing. She was tall and pale, dressed in a tattered, old-fashioned white gown that might have been elegant a century ago. Her movements were graceful but utterly wrong. She swayed and spun to the silent, unheard rhythm of the music only she could hear, her limbs moving with a stiff, unnatural elegance. Her face was obscured by long, dark hair, but Mark could see her hands, pale and long-fingered, held out as if clasping a partner who wasn't there. His blood ran cold. This wasn't a prank. The air in the room had dropped 10 degrees. He must have made a sound, a sharp intake of breath, the scuff of his shoe, because she stopped. The music, which had been a faint background noise, cut out abruptly, leaving a silence more deafening than any sound. Slowly, unnervingly slowly, her head began to turn toward him. He heard the faint, dry crackle of bone. He didn't wait to see her face. He turned and ran. He sprinted past the cubicles, not daring to look back, his heart hammering against his ribs. He could hear it now, a soft, shuffling sound behind him. Not a run, but a slow, deliberate step. Shuffle. Drag. Shuffle. Drag. It was keeping pace with him, never getting closer, but never falling behind. He fumbled for his keys, finally reaching the main office door. He flung it open and burst into the hallway, slamming it shut behind him. He leaned against it, gasping for air, expecting to hear the thing on the other side scratching to get out. Silence. Trembling, he risked a glance through the small reinforced window in the door. She was there. Standing directly on the other side, her face finally visible. It was gaunt, her skin stretched taut over sharp bone, and her eyes were two dark, empty pits. But her mouth was stretched into a wide, impossibly large smile, a rictus grin of pure, terrifying glee. And she was still dancing. A slow, swaying motion on the spot, her hands still held out, inviting him to join her. Mark stumbled back, a cry caught in his throat. He turned and ran for the elevators, jamming the button over and over. The shuffle drag sound started again, but it wasn't coming from behind the door anymore. It was coming from the stairwell next to the elevators. The elevator doors slid open with a merciful ding. He threw himself inside, frantically pressing the lobby button and the close door button simultaneously. Just as the doors began to shut, a pale, skeletal hand slid into the gap, stopping them. The doors shuddered and reopened. She stood in the doorway, her head tilted, that fixed, horrifying smile never wavering. She took one slow, shuffling step into the elevator. The air grew frigid. Mark pressed himself against the back wall, paralyzed with fear. She raised her arms again, the final, silent invitation to her eternal waltz. In a final, desperate act of panic, Mark's hand flew to the control panel and he slammed every single floor button. The elevator jolted. The doors, sensing an obstruction, began to close again, bumping against her arm before reopening. The interruption broke her eerie focus for a split second. It was all the chance he had. He ducked under her outstretched arm and launched himself out of the elevator, sprinting for the stairwell instead. He took the stairs 3 at a time, not stopping until he exploded out into the cold, blessed air of the night. He didn't stop running until he was 3 blocks away, surrounded by the normal sounds of the city. He never went back. He quit his job the next morning via email, giving no explanation. Weeks later, he met up with a former colleague for a drink. Hesitantly, Mark asked if anyone else had ever reported strange things in the office late at night. The colleague turned pale. "You saw her too," he whispered, leaning in. "They say she was a worker who died in the building decades ago. A fire in the old archives wing. They said she loved to dance. Now she just collects partners." Old man Henderson from accounting, he vanished after working late about 5 years ago. They just found his security badge in the archives room. Mark's blood ran cold. He never stayed late at any office again. But sometimes, just as he's falling asleep, he hears it, the faint, ghostly sound of a static-filled waltz. And he knows. The Serbian Dancing Lady doesn't just haunt an office. She haunts anyone who has ever met her gaze. And she's always looking for a new partner.